Hello, and welcome to Marathon Swim Stories, where we connect with marathon swimmers around the world to find out how they got started, what makes them tick, and why they keep going. It's where we explore the human side of the superhuman feats of endurance swimmers, the connections that we have with each other, our support crew, and the waters we cross. If you've ever stood at the edge of a body of water and wondered what it would be like to swim to the other side, you're in good company. I'm Shannon Keegan, marathon swimmer, water relationship coach, and founder of Intrepid Water, where I virtually teach swimming freedom. Freedom to get started, shed the confines of the pool, or your preconceived notions of what's possible. Find out more at intrepidwater.com. I always talk with my clients about marathon swims being events, not races. They are milestones in our life, like getting married or having kids. They become part of our being, a source of pride, a reminder of what we're capable of in tough times. But what if that event involved an intimate encounter with a squalliform that landed you in the emergency room after 9.5 hours of swimming? How do you internalize that experience? How do you incorporate that into your being? Eric Schall knows all too well. I hope you enjoy his story. Eric, it's so great to finally connect.
Thank you. It's finally glad to be here.
It's been a long time coming. Tell me about your relationship with the water, Eric. I'm very curious.
Okay, so my relationship with the water started probably 20 some years ago, and I was not the prototypical swimmer, high school swimmer. I didn't swim in age group or anything like that. And I was always active in sports when I was growing up. I played soccer in high school and club soccer in college and started running. And then I found triathlon, but swimming was not part of my triathlon experience. I would go in and survive the swim and then do an excellent ride and a run. And then I found bicycle racing, which was really compelling to me. And I'd always been interested in that. Even since I was a little kid, I remember seeing a cover on Sports Illustrated, and I'll never forget it. It's like somebody had taken an overhead shot of guys, they were staying on a bridge and the whole pack was riding underneath the bridge. And somebody just took this amazingly colorful photograph. And I'd always been fascinated by long distance cycling. And I was racing pretty well into my 20s and 30s. I was a mountain bike racer and I was doing well on what was then the Norba Circuit National Off-Road Bike, which then was purchased by the United States Cycling Federation, which I don't even think is in existence anymore. I think it's just USA Cycling. And so I was doing well and I was having a lot of success and a lot of fun on the mountain bike circuit, but I've developed a little bit of a back injury and just an overuse injury. And listen, back then we didn't know, or certainly the general public didn't have access to cross training and the type of physical therapy or even chiropractic at that time. And so I just started swimming just to maintain myself between races. And I got to the water and I was like, how could I be racing at this high level of mountain bike? And it was the advent of, or the early stages of heart rate monitors, and so we could capture our races, our workouts, and I was averaging, 170 beats a minute for an hour and a half, 2 hours. And I got into the pool and I'm like, I can't get from one end to the other without being exhausted. At that point, swimming felt really good on my body. It felt really good.
Do you remember what it was that brought you to the water? So you said that, just to keep in shape between, but you said you would survive the swim and triathlon. So then why did you come back to the water?
Because it felt good. It felt good to stretch my body rather than compress and be locked in. Yeah. And cycling is fun because you can go far under your own power, but you're locked into these pedal clips and you're doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over. It's the same pattern over and over. I mean, you can stand up and sit down, but and mountain biking made it easier to be a little different. But then when I got into the water, I was like, man, I can stretch my body out rather than compress everything. I'm not all locked in. I like felt this sense of freedom. And that's when I really started to like think, well, maybe this is a better sport for me. Again, this was like the real early days of the internet. I mean, I had like a leading edge 286 and dial up internet. And I typed in adult swimming. And the first thing that came up was Total Immersion with Terry Laughlin. And so I signed up for one of his classes because, again, I just knew that I had something here. And I took the class and I discovered that you don't have to be, I don't want to say enormously fit because it does help, but there was a technique and a science to the swimming. I already had aerobic base. And then once I learned the technique and how you could hone or change the technique for what you wanted to do, that's when I really became hooked, because it was a series of movements and practices of movement that got me into it. And so it was almost like learning to play the piano or learning to play the drums or painting or cooking, or it was like this practice that every time I did it, I found more efficiency.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, you developed a practice of swimming instead of it being a workout, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. And so it was like yoga or anything else. It was just like this refinement of movement that got me hooked. And I guess it had to be at that point in time, because, earlier we just went out and ran, or we would just go out and bike. But I think as you become an older athlete, you just can't go out and hammer every day. That's what I did. And so then I learned to refine my movement and learn to be more efficient. And so there's, once that gets a hold of you or certain people, then, it becomes almost a passion, and it became a passion for me.
Mm-hmm. And this was midlife, you said? I know. I'm sorry. You said 20 years ago. I don't know how old you are. So.
Well, it's when I was in my 40s that I really learned how to swim, or learned to appreciate the value of efficient swimming. So I'm 61 now. So I've been practicing it for 21 years.
Mm-hmm. That's excellent. So where did it take you, this relationship with the water that you developed, this new practice?
It took me to, and I didn't know much, then. I mean, I knew about pool swimming and obviously the Olympics and, United States Masters swimming, which I immediately joined because I wanted to learn more about adult swimming. And I wanted to contribute because I think I just think swimming in general is good for just about anybody, no matter what else you want to do, whether you're a professional basketball player or a football player or anything else. Swimming is just good, I think, for anybody. And then if you want to be just a swimmer, you can take it in that direction too. So, I joined USMS, and, so it was all pool swimming. And then maybe 7-8 years ago, I was in my early to mid 50s, and there's another guest that you had on here from our town, Mary Stella, and we were all, I think she was practicing Ironman triathlon at that time. And, we just kind of thought that we'd like to try, an open water swim. So one of our local YMCAs had a 3-mile swim, 5K. And I was like, I couldn't believe that we were going to go out and swim for 3 miles straight. We'd done pools, but, there's no walls.
Yeah.
And so, we had a good time with that. And a bunch of us had done it. And then there was another lady in our town, Clancy, who had done, and she's a good swimmer. She had done a 10K at Lake George. So the following year we went up to Lake George and did the 10K. And again, I couldn't believe that we were going to swim 6.2 miles. And I did it. And, I was a wreck. I mean, I'd never done anything that strenuous for 3 hours. I mean, I could ride 100 miles on a bike in 4.5 or under 5 hours. It wasn't anything. But then, you swim for like it took me, 3 hours and 40 minutes that time. And I was really hooked because, my muscles hurt, but nothing else hurt. And it felt really good.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
It felt really good to go that far and just really push yourself. There was no pacing, just went out and did it. And then I circled back with Terry Laughlin again, because I wanted a couple pointers on my stroke. And he said that maybe you should try like swimming around Manhattan. I was like, that's for like real swimmers, like people that have been swimming all their lives. And he said, no, I think you could do it. And so we tried 2 stages of 8 bridges, and that was in 2017. Oh, prior to 2017, we tried also some of Phil White's swims, the 10 mile and then the border buster, and those were pretty cool. I mean, they were like, they set the table, and Phil's got some cool stuff. I love, that's where I met you, was at Kingdom Week, and that's kind of like one of the coolest things ever, I think, just kind of go out and swim, and there's like no real pressure. You just go out and swim some lakes with some awesome people. And, I've met a lot of people there. And so 2017, I tried stage 1 and stage 5 of 8 bridges. And stage 1, I made it like to this little, maybe a mile from the bridge, and I was sick, and I just didn't know much about swimming that long. And, the tide came in, and I didn't make it. And I thought, oh man, how am I ever going to turn this thing around and swim stage 5, which I think is known as the beast? And so I kind of got my act together. I changed my feet around a little bit, and lo and behold, the next week I swam stage 5. And again, I met some really cool people there. I met Steve Grinwald and Steve Rao and Janine. I mean, all people that have been on your program, Steve Grinwald hasn't been on your program.
No, I haven't.
You got to hook him up, because, he's got some stories to tell too. And then in August, I tried Manhattan, and I made it. And that was such an epic swim, because not in my performance, but just the magnitude of swimming around this giant city. And, you're swimming up the Harlem, and, you got hobos on the side of the river fishing, and they're cheering you on. And these guys don't even know who you are. You know what I mean? Or you get to the train yard, and there's guys working on backhoes, and they're beeping their horns and, cheering everybody on. And then you go through Spite and Dival and into the Hudson, and, it's the enormity of this river, and you're swimming along, freighters and ocean liners, and you get down by the harbor, and, you got the water taxis, and it's just this epic thing of New York City and the vibe. And then you're done, and you just like go home, and it's like, well, what can we do next? What's next? Because it's like so awesome, And so that's how I progressed into long distance marathon swimming. It's, once you go down the rabbit hole, and I think it takes, and we're all, I don't want to use the term guilty, but, we all have it. Anybody that's involved in long distance swimming kind of like goes down this pathway, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
And what is it? Is it self-exploration? Maybe, because for us, there's no prize money in long distance swimming. I mean, and to me, that's the beauty of the long distance of what we do. One of the things I noticed, and this is such a side tangent, but when I was in bicycle racing, there was always, even at the amateur level, there was some prize money, just enough to, if you were winning, you pay your gas or your tires or something. And, invariably there'd be like a fist fight in the parking lot because somebody cut somebody else off in the sprint,
mm-hmm.
And then as I migrated over to mountain bike racing, there was no money in the, no prize money. And then as they started adding prize money, it got like more competitive, but there was some of the fun was taken out of it, And so then you get to what we do, and there's no prize money, and it's, you're there. Mostly everybody's there because they love their relationship with the water, and they like to do some self-exploration. For me, that's how it is.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I sit with the competition thing, because it's interesting, because in me, I find that in a setting like one of Phil White's swims, that I do find myself wondering how I'm doing against the other swimmers. And it's not quite that same. Well, even probably during Kingdom Swim Week, but I'm like, what am I competing against? Because at the end of the day, the self-fulfillment is what I'm after, knowing that when I finish something, that I did that, and that I get to take that with me for the rest of my life. And so I think that's way more what I do it. But I wonder about that kind of competitive edge. And it's interesting that you bring in how in biking and with their prize money, and just how it makes us, I guess. It's interesting, just the duality of the self-exploration and that kind of person that you can be by becoming wanting to be a better self, versus the kind of person you become when you are competing with other people and there's fistfights in the parking lot. It's like that duality is just very interesting to me.
Oh yeah, completely interesting. Yeah. And I don't even know, do I want to swim as fast as one of my buddies? Yeah, I do. But every day is a different day. even when we're cold water swimming, 2 weeks ago, we were swimming in 58-degree water, and it was like, oh man, I'm cold. And then the next week we were swimming in 60-degree water, and it's only 2 degrees warmer, but so it's not like drastically warmer, but all of a sudden it's easy. You know what I mean? And so every day is different, and you can go back and swim stage 1 the next day. I mean, if you possibly could, of 8 bridges, and have a completely different result. And your buddy or your friend may have like a negative result just because they weren't feeling good on that day. And every day is a different day on the water.
Maybe it's liberating. Maybe that's what it is. It's liberating to think, like you were saying, like the freedom of just like, well, it's a different day. So we can shed the comparison to a degree.
Because you can't do that in the pool.
Right. The precision. Yeah.
Right. At the end of that day, it's still a 25-yard pool. There's no wind. The water's always going to be 78 or whatever it is, 77, 78. Do you know what I mean? And so on that day, you have to be your absolute best or you don't have the gold medal. Whereas in swimming, you might not be your best and still get there, or you might be your best and have the best day ever, but you can't, it's difficult to replicate, I think, in open water swimming. So for me, that's what's compelling, because what is it that we need to do to make that happen day after day after day? And can we quantify that? Is it quantifiable? I don't know. There's so many other variables: mood, wind, weather, food, parents, business, pandemics. You know what I mean? They're always changing.
Yeah, but we can always go back to the water.
Yeah. It's always there.
So when you circled back with Terry, did he give you some pointers on your stroke other than inspiring you to go swim Manhattan?
Minor things. Yeah, minor tweaks. And that's the other thing, there's always something you can work on in swimming, just even technique wise. And there's so much to think about. To me, if I've got my hands entering properly, then something's going on with my feet, or I'm not pushing in hard enough, or I'm not rotating enough, or I'm rotating too much. So there's this constant evolution. So he gave me a couple things. And on the one that always sticks with me is, I guess people of my era can remember, it can identify with this, but on Saturday Night Live, there was Steve Martin, and he would show up with the arrow pointing over, through his head, because he's such a goof. And so we called it the Steve Martin joke, because we would have to he called it hop and drop. You would finish, come up over your ear where the arrow would come in, and just drop it in right where the arrow started again, And so I always remember, hop and drop, just don't overextend and get your hand in that water soon. So that's the one I always remember from Terry. Silliness.
That's great. You guys had the opportunity to be in the area where he was in and be work.
Oh yeah, we were lucky for that. New Paltz was 2 hours from my house. And so he always did all of this, most of his, I know he did a lot of stuff all over the country and literally all over the world, I think. But the epicenter for us was Hudson Valley and New York City, New Jersey, and stuff like that. So, we're not far from that. It was definitely cool to be able to tap into that energy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. After Manhattan, where did you go?
This has been a journey. So what do you do after that? Well, after Manhattan, because again, you start thinking about English Channel or Catalina, right?
Right. Obviously, because there's this Triple Crown thing hanging out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Or all of 8 bridges. And I always wanted to do all of 8 bridges, because that's something, and maybe I'm putting too many limitations on myself, because I still talk about it with everybody. But 8 bridges is something that you got to do, I think, while you have some relative youth on you, because 120 miles of swimming in 8 days, as you become older, becomes more of a challenge, because the recuperation time is a challenge. But maybe that's a self-limitation. And if you could get 8 bridges under your belt, then you could go do the Triple Crown, English Channel and Catalina. But it doesn't always work out that way, because you have to lead up to it. And I think 2018 was a lead up for me. I tried to swim the length of Lake Memphremagog, and we were sent out a big windstorm, and I don't forget how many people were with in our little group, maybe 10, maybe 12, and only 2 people finished. Vera Rivard was one of them, and Charissa Gutierrez finished also. And so I learned something there. I had to learn about toughing it out, and I was more seasick than anything. I drank so much lake water that day. I like swimming in rough water. I really do. I just had to learn to tough it out. And then, so that was 2018. And then I forget what else I did, but I had some decent swims. Then 2019, I get this call from Steve Grunwald. He said, let's try swimming Kaiwi. Because he and I had done Swim the Suck, and we found a feed that worked for us. So he was all gung-ho to try Kaiwi. And Steve and I swim reasonably well together. He starts out faster than I do, but I think I can finish. I have like a little more endurance. And Steve's a great swimmer, and he's a good guy, and we had a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun together. So we're doing Kaiwi, and we'd been there for 2 weeks, and we'd run out of time. We were running out of days because the wind was so hard. And we had to wait until the very last day, which was a Friday. Everybody was scheduled to leave on a Saturday, and the water was the best that it could be, I guess, in that 2-week period. And so we're swimming, and I don't know, we're a couple hours in, and then Steve gets sick. He pulled, and then, I'm swimming along, and about an hour after Steve pulled, I was bitten by the cookie cutter shark. So that event obviously put a little bit of a hold, or sent my swimming journey in a different direction that I would have never planned, or anybody, So I had to recuperate. I did stage 6 that year of 8 bridges, because I wanted to swim doing upstate, the first 4. And I was recuperated enough that I could volunteer. And then Steve came back and did an upstate, and I was like so impressed by the way Steve swam, and the way the water was, and the way everything was. I pleaded with David and Rondi to let me swim stage 6. And I had enough training in, and I finished the swim, but it wasn't great. I didn't do particularly well. And then I did the 3 Rivers Marathon swim afterwards, and I barely made it under the wire, the 12-hour cutoff. But I just, my training had been so interrupted, and I didn't realize that I was still recovering. I'm kind of like a knucklehead like that. I just, think that I'm going to bounce back. And I thought that, I'd been recovered, and I wasn't, not fully. And then 2020 was the pandemic. So hardly anybody got any swimming there. And we were doing a couple of bootleg swims and our own swims. I did a loop around my local lake. And then 2021, my mom passed away, and my dad was diagnosed with dementia. And business was a challenge because of COVID and everything else. And so here we are at 2022, and, I'm a little more tired than I want to be going into some big swims. So that's where it's taken me, and I'm like, so now I'm thinking to myself, what do I do now? It's hard to make some plans with parents. And listen, I'm 60, and everybody in my generation, or 61, pretty much everybody in my generation, I think, has a parent that's going through what my parents have gone through, and it seems like everybody that I talk to has a parent that has some kind of a long health issue. It takes its toll time-wise. You think that you can go out and swim, and all of a sudden you're taking care of a parent, whether it's in a hospital or you're covering for somebody while they're recuperating at home. And you think that you can go out and swim, but you can't really go out and put it all out there and then spend the next week or so in an emergency room or something like that. Do you know what I mean? So I'm kind of up in the air right now. I'm just kind of taking this year as it comes. And it's frustrating because type A people, and I think a lot of us fall into that category, right? Say, well, if I'm going to do this, this, and this in the year of X, Y, Z, and then you can't. And now you have to learn this whole adaptability skill.
Sounds like a good skill to learn.
Well, I'm struggling with it.
What is swim freedom? It's the freedom to start swimming when you don't think you have the skill, ability, or time. The freedom to swim with ease. The freedom to enjoy your time in the water. The freedom to swim further than you ever thought possible. What's holding you back? Let's talk about it. Shannon at intrepidwater.com. I want to come back to this, but I feel like you glossed over, I think you assuming that everyone knows about the cookie cutter incident. I mean, and I don't know how much you want to retell, but how did that affect your comfort level or in the water or your, I don't know, like there's a lot there that I feel like you just glossed right over. Like, and then I went to Kaiwi and then I got and then I had to recover. Can you take us there?
Sure. I mean, I'll go as far as you want to go on that one. Well, first of all, I was back in the water in 6 weeks wearing a wetsuit. But, I knew that I wanted to get my body stretched out. And when I had the bite, I had a big hole below my belly button, like a good 6-inch diameter.
8 inches diameter? Wow. Okay. Small, like a small pizza.
Like a personal pizza.
Wow.
It's like reverse sushi. The fish got their revenge on me on that one.
It's a way to make light of it, I guess.
And it was deep, it was like 2 centimeters deep. That's what they do.
Yeah.
And so to repair that, I had to have, I guess, I forget what the repair is called, but it's the equivalent of a tummy tuck.
Oh, wow.
So for weeks, I was, bent over at the waist, and I'm still tight. I never realized how long it would take for my body to release and get all that elasticity back, which is amazing to me because the human body is like pretty incredible with
it's
what it
very
can
incredible. Yeah.
to do, And so I suppose if my message to a lot of people is, when I tell them this or they ask me about it, I say, don't give up because, your body is made out of all these cells that are pretty much elastic. And the only thing that's limiting you from regaining, and not the only thing, but I mean, you might not get it back to where it was 100%. But think about it. You're never really 100% of what you were a week ago or even a day ago. You're 100% of what you are now. And so you have to let all that stuff go, let it go, and look, one day at a time further down forward, right? You do. And so it's taken me probably 3 years to get fully recuperated from this thing.
Yeah. Wow. Was there any kind of cross training or anything that you could do to kind of help, I guess, stretch? I know it's hard to imagine.
Swimming was really the best.
Yeah.
Swimming and walking. And I had to wait because I had stitches on the inside. Then I had 26 staples on the outside. Oh, 1 staple for every mile of that swim.
That you couldn't complete.
So I saved all the staples. And one of these days we're going to go back and throw those staples in the water and do that swim again. Okay. Yeah. When the time is right, but things have to settle down. So the cross training was walking and swimming, but I had to take it easy and I just had to take with whatever my body would give me.
Yeah.
And I would feel it. I mean, I could feel it in my stroke because when the shark hit me, it nipped part of the muscle fascia on my right side, my right rectus abdominis, the one like the muscle that comes right through your abdomen on the right side. So there's always been more tightness on that side recuperating. So it kind of like threw my mechanics of my stroke off a little bit. And so you have to like work through all that and just push it. And some days it's fine. And then other days it comes back. I'm like, what is that? At this point, to me, it has to be a mental thing.
Yeah, potentially.
Like something going on mentally. So you have to just like push through it and get through it and work, not push, but work through it and reason through it. And then you get to another level and it levels off. And then you find, you start pushing again and then you find another little thing to work on. And all of a sudden the shark bite is just like refining your stroke.
Interesting.
So for me, it was.
Yeah.
So
I was going to say, for as amazing as our bodies are, they're also complex. I think there's hormones and like all kinds of things. Just the sensations in our body, I feel like can be. So I don't know. It's like, or what's going on at work, the stress. It's like, when we carry that stuff into the water, there's so much of a letting, like release that you have to like let happen. And it's hard to do because sometimes you're like, I just want to get through this swim because you've got, your dad, you got to go take care of and work, you got to go. And it's hard to get to where, I guess, what the romantic notion of what I want the water to always be is it's just a romantic notion.
Right. That euphoric state of like that flow state of when you're in a swim and it's like, there's nothing, you're not thinking of anything else. You're not even thinking.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just happening. It doesn't matter. For me, my medium is swimming. For somebody else, that euphoric state could be playing the piano or painting or cooking or playing football or golf or whatever it is. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, right. I'm wondering now that you said the flow state, because it's been a big research project of mine, side project for me. And so I'm curious for you. I don't feel like I can get it in a practice as much as like, I feel like that's why I sign up for the swims, the long swims, is because that's when I can set all my responsibilities aside and go find or try seek that flow state.
Yeah. And sometimes you find it and it finds you,
and
like some days you don't even,
doesn't.
like sometimes you don't even, there's some days that you do so much preparation and you never find it. And then there's other days like you just like kind of, and it's there and it's like, whoa, let's go see where this takes us.
Yeah. I'm a little astounded that it sounds like and I love that you want to go back to Kaiwi. I think I want to go with you. I'm terrified, but I think you're going to go with the guy who's been bit before.
Oh, yeah.
But so it didn't change your comfort level with the water at all. You're just like, yeah, whatever, shark had a little meal and is there a fear there?
Oh, no, I'm still a little jumpy. There's some PTSD a little bit. Like when I did Three Rivers, the paddlers knew that I'd been bitten by the shark, obviously, but sometimes they would throw the paddle wash, the paddle wash into my stream, which normally wouldn't have bothered. But then I felt like, I would get startled, like, oh man. And I was never really bothered by things in the water, but occasionally I'll get bumped by something, and it still scares me a little bit. So I hope I can weed that part of it out. Because I know a lot of people are freaked out by touching things in the water. They are, and I get it, but when they bite,
right.
That's when you gotta watch.
Yeah. That's an interesting thing to, I guess, work through. I love that you kind of just got back on the horse and just kept swimming, but it sounds like you need it.
Oh, I love swimming, and there was really nothing else I would really, really wanted else to do. I mean, and I remember once I was kept like a little bit of a journal, and when I was cycling, I would write my goals and things that I wanted to do. And I remember writing down that when I turned 50, that I wanted to become a master swimmer. But so it happened when I was 40, and I just knew that this was something that I wanted to do. I always liked the water.
I feel like I hear people say, oh, I'd love to be a swimmer, and then there's always the but. Why should somebody consider swimming?
Because I think anybody can do it if you put, and I don't want to use the term put your mind to it, because that's sounds like drudgery. But if you open your mind and allow the water to support you and learn all the little tricks that allow the water to support you, anybody could do it. Yeah, I think there's so many people that are have this fear of the water. I don't even know why, but it's valid because there's a lot of them. And I don't know what that is. I don't know enough about the research on that to say, hey, you can get over this, because I think anybody can. And then once you develop these movement skills, there's an ease and a gracefulness about it. You don't have to be the fastest person to experience how the water can actually work for you. I told this to other people, I told this to Gia once, and she's been on your show. Some days the water swims you. There are things that you can do to allow the water to work for. It's actually not hard work to me, if you know the tricks, and you just have to keep practicing them until they become automatic. Unconscious competence was one of Terry's things.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yes. That's a big, big thing in coaching, just trying to teach people that unconscious competence.
Yeah. I mean, you start off unconsciously incompetent. You don't know what's going on. And then you become consciously incompetent, right? You think, well, now something's not right here because somebody's swimming faster than me or easier than me. And you seek help, and then somebody helps you. And then you can become consciously competent. You have to think about it. And then there's that day when it happens, and then you're unconsciously competent. It just happens. And then that becomes normal. And then you figure out there's more things to work on,
Yeah. You have to want to work on things. And I think for some people, that's the biggest hurdle. For some people, there's a fear. Obviously, it's a medium that we could die in. And then I think there's people I don't know that swimming lessons is always taught in a way, like people are taught to get to the other side of a pool or whatever. They're not necessarily taught to enjoy the water. And then as we get older, it's harder to do something that you're not good at, and to say like, I'm going to put myself in a position where I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to do that anyway. It's hard for people to put themselves in that space. But I've tried to figure out how to interpret, like, how do I tell people how valuable it is? It's like, no, but we need to, you should do it.
To me, it never really mattered what the skill was. I mean, because, people can do that academically. People get their master's degrees when they're 40. Well, it's not much different than teaching yourself to swim. I mean, you just have to open up another part of your brain. I don't think that I could get my master's degree in, I don't know, something. And somebody would say, yes, you can. You have to put your mind to it, open up that part of your brain. So for me, the physicality and the mentality of swimming came easily to me. And so, one of my things is to try and convey that to other people, that you can do it. You just have to allow it to happen. That's the tricky part. That's the part of teaching, is enabling, getting people to almost enable themselves to be able to do it.
Yes. Getting past the limiting beliefs, which maybe we should circle back to you limiting yourself by your age.
Right. Right. I do know better, but sometimes
they're called limiting beliefs for a reason, because we limit ourselves with them, right?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. A limited belief system, when really it's unlimited. It's all out there. And there's, for swimming, I wanted to at least, mention this, and this is the cool thing about swimming. There's like Pat Gillette Charette. Oh yeah. PGC. You know who I'm talking about. Yes. PGC. That woman's amazing. Right. I mean, what she's doing is amazing. And Jamie Tout, there's another guy that's, just knocking these swims out of them, or there, Stefan Reinke. I mean, he was on your podcast. The guy did all 4 stages of SCAR. Or Steve Munatonis, 1 SCAR this year. At 59 years of age. That's
after a major heart attack. Yeah.
After a major heart attack, that's pretty darn good. We can talk about getting past these limited belief systems.
Yeah.
Because that's what it is.
Yeah. And then I love the longevity of swimming. I always try to make people know, like, well, yes, you can start at any age, and you can do whatever you want, and you can do it for the rest of your life. There's just not the impacts of gravity and, or even, it's just, there is a coordination, but that's the kind of the channeling that can happen if you allow yourself to get those coordinated movements in the water. So
yeah. Right. I agree. Yeah. People say 60 is the new 40, so I don't know. Does that make 70 the new 50, or 80 is the new 60? I don't know, or maybe 80 is going to be the new 40 someday.
Yeah. I don't know. Vicky Keith said she's going to live to 132. So
Who said that?
Vicky Keith.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like, yes, this is awesome.
Yeah. Why not? Yeah,
why not?
Why not? All right.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because, we know so much more about nutrition now than we did. We know more about physical therapy and the way the body works, and the way exercise supports brain function, and, good diet supports brain. Why can't we?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah. So I'm all for that.
Yeah, let's do it. So tell us about SCAR. Tell me about how SCAR went this year for you.
Well, SCAR was hard for me this year, because I had limited training going in, and maybe that's a limited belief. I don't know. And I did only Apache and Roosevelt. And so, it's everything they say that it is. It's cold at the start, and SCAR is a challenge because, in my opinion, because if you're from the Northeast part of the country, the water's still too cold to practice, to get some practice. If you live in Florida, the water's too warm. If you live, I don't know, how's the water where you live? Maybe more temperate.
Yeah, you said you guys are at 62 today. We were at 59 Monday, but it doesn't get as cold in the winter here, so we can not swim through the winter. I mean, it's 40s. It gets down to high 30s, 40s. But it's a very hard swim to train for. I think most people train in the pool for it, but then you're not ready for the cold water. So it's like, how do you balance that and be ready for a long swim in April?
Yeah, and that's the conundrum of doing, that type of an early swim. And stage swimming fascinates me too. because, it's day after day after day, and we can push ourselves to do it. It's just, how do you get through it? How do you manage it? So that's the fascinating thing to me. So starting, when I started Apache, it was, I don't know, 52 or 53, and it's, it'll wake you up in a hurry. The water temperature, and then it was cold and windy all day. And I just, for me, I DNF, I didn't have the training base to make that work, and then Roosevelt is just, that's really one of the most fun swims there is.
Yeah, they had a buoy course this year, though?
They did. Yeah, there was, I don't know, they had access issues because of a COVID-related violation or issue. So, and I get it. I mean, I don't know if it's easier for Kent to run a buoy course or out, a point to point. I don't know. I would think it's easier to run a buoy course because everybody starts and finishes at the same spot, which is cool. There's always a little more post-swim camaraderie. But the magnitude of Arizona and the lakes and the rivers in that state are just, it's amazing just how the land rolls and goes on and on and on and on forever. It's really the beauty, and that's the cool thing about all these swims. I mean, really, it's just
excuse to go somewhere.
Well, and the water's always a little different too. It tastes different, it feels different. As a swimmer, I think you can talk about that. The water's different from one location to the next. It feels different, which is kind of cool. But Scars, it's a hard swim to train for.
Yeah. How do you think that marathon swimming has changed, enhanced, or not your relationship with the water?
Oh, it's definitely enhanced. First of all, it's changed my relationship with the water, and it's definitely enhanced it. I started as a pool swimmer, and that water, if you're talking relationship with the water, that water's always like a lot of chemicals. It's very chlorine-y, and not that I mind swimming in a pool, because I mean, like if I can get to the pool, I like to swim at 5 o'clock in the morning, on a cold winter morning. All of a sudden that feels good. By April and May, that warm water, that sensation, I'm done with going, swimming in circles, and now I'm ready to go out into, the lakes and feel the crispness of the water and the feel of the air, the air change. And the quality of the air is obviously much different than it is inside of a pool. The seasons of swimming, they're always changing for me, and it's always a welcome change. Certainly by November and December, I'm ready to come back into the pool and chill out a little bit, and
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of a beautiful ebb and flow of, and it's really, there is this kind of, we're really in with nature. Like, you're kind of bound with nature in a way. We go through this, like you said, we go through the seasons, and we end up just, I don't know, for me, I end up dropping off my swimming almost completely after some of the big long swims in the summer, but I really like kind of nestling in and, like, I don't know, reacquainting, but like going back to the pool little by little. And but it's a really kind of a beautiful connection with the world.
So I'm from the Northeast, so we all, part of the country, northeastern Pennsylvania, so we get 4 seasons, and so we're used to seasonality. I suppose if you were from the South or the West, the Southwest, you don't get that seasonality. So your output changes, your planning changes, like you can do, if you're from San Diego, you can pretty much swim the year round. So your training is different. I don't know if it's any more or less than somebody from the Northeast, but the planning changes.
Yeah, I wonder if they're.
And the thing I like about swimming is, running, you got a pair of shoes and a shorts and a shirt. Cycling was a little more gear oriented. Kayaking, I mean, holy crow, there's like so much stuff that you buy for kayaking or even hiking. But swimming, for a guy, it's just a pair of shorts and a cap and goggles. For a girl, it's a 1-piece or a 2-piece, and that's it. I mean, you're buried in nature. That's to me, as close to nature as you're going to get. I mean, you're in one of the elements of nature, and you're fully immersed. And to me, I like that. There's no equipment. Goggles don't make you go faster. Your cap doesn't make you go faster. Your suit, right. I don't know, long distance swimming, I don't know if those FINA suits make you go any faster or not. Right. I don't know. You know what I mean? But after 30, 20-mile swim, it doesn't really make that much of a difference. It's all about what you're putting into it. And so I always liked that about swimming. It's you. It's just you and the water, and that's all there is to it. To me, that's the beauty of swimming.
Yeah. As long as there's water.
Yeah.
Well,
there's that. There's that. Yeah, that's a problem.
It is.
Yeah, it's a real problem. Lake Mead is down, I don't know how many feet. Even Apache, you could see the, it looked like it was down 5 or 6 feet, from the rings or the markings on the rocks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's a lot of water.
That's a lot of water.
That's a lot of water. Yeah. So we better take care of it.
Thank you so much for chatting with me, Eric.
Thanks, Shannon. Yeah, thanks.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you were inspired by even just a moment of this story, please share it with a friend. You never know what might push someone out of their comfort zone so that they can find out what they're capable of. And please leave a review with your podcast provider. It truly helps others discover the raw and honest stories of these amazing endurance swimmers. Thanks for listening.